Dana. Dana, come on in.
Thank you, Jay. My name is Dana, and I am an alcoholic. Thanks for having me, y'all. Wow, what an honor to be asked to speak at this meeting, and what a joy to be in a room full of people to whom I am truly related, in a room full of people who we don't normally mix, but we have one thing in common, and that's our relationship with alcohol. So before I get started, I love all forms of alcohol. I am an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life, and I have fierce loyalty and respect for this program. And if I do slip up or say something about outside issues and it offends you, I'm sorry. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I would never intend to do that. And please call your sponsor if it's real bad. I am so honored to be here. So like I said, my name is Dana and I'm an alcoholic. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor. My sponsor's name is Jay Westbrook. His sponsor's name is Kathy Netches. I sponsor women in the program. I have grand sponsees. I have cousins, nieces, nephews. I do the work. I work the steps. I take other women through the steps. I was actually going to straighten my hair and fix it before the meeting. And then I got one of those calls from a sponsee that's like, why doesn't anybody understand that I've been sober for 3 months and I'm never going to drink again? It's like, well, so what a blessing that this program is set up the way that it is. Because I remember those calls and I remember that feeling. And there is nothing that you could do today to make me go back there. So let's talk a little bit about what it was like. I am from South Mississippi. My family is from South Louisiana. So when I was growing up, I was like, I'm going to be a professional alcoholic. I didn't know the words for it, but I knew that everybody that I loved and respected had a beer in their hand. So when I was younger, it was really easy for me to make that connection. Like, okay, these people you respect, you want to be just like them, you're going to drink. And I didn't think it was a nefarious thing. Obviously, you don't understand problematic drinking until you're one of us and you can diagnose yourself. That's one of the miracles of AA, is the ability to hear yourself in the literature and be like, wow, I have a problem. Because before that, I had a very insidious beginning to my disease that was like, this is what your family does. This is what fun looks like. So you're going to do it. So South Louisiana, gumbo cooking, partying. I was like, this is my life. It's going to be great. But when I was a child, I didn't see the part of alcoholism that I came to know later in life, which is what happens when everybody keeps staying up past 10 o'clock. And I didn't see the marriages that get ruined. I didn't see the arrests, and I didn't see all the toxic behaviors that we participate in when we're drinking. I just saw the fun. So like I said, my family is alcoholic. They drink alcoholically. And there was never a time where I thought that was going to be a factor of my life, because I was also raised in church. I'm from Mississippi, raised in church. You go every Sunday and Wednesday. But I knew that I had something inside me. Now I know it's untreated alcoholism. But when I was younger, I was like, there's just something that's not right about the way that I feel. Something in life hurts. I can't figure it out. But I know that I'm just not quite like other people. And throughout my life, I would find outlets. You find little things you can obsess about, and that obsession of the mind and that obsession and that behavior, before I found alcohol, manifested in different ways. And so when I was in high school, it was soccer. I was obsessed. I played soccer as hard as I could. I wanted to make my coaches proud. I was at every practice. I was the team captain. And what that got me was a scholarship in college. And I also had a very strict set of regiments. You have drug testing, and I couldn't drink, and I wanted to be good and I wanted to achieve these things. And I was using soccer alcoholically. I didn't even know that. And it worked. And I really loved it. My senior year of high school was 2005. And if you were from the area that I was from, August of 2005 was Hurricane Katrina. I don't know how it affected you or if you know much about it, but where I'm from and where my family's from, everything was destroyed. And life was not the same as we knew it. I'm from Petal, Mississippi, which is an hour and 15 minutes up from the coast of Mississippi. And in my house that I grew up in, we had no power for 2 months, and I was out of school for 4 months. But everywhere that my family lived was completely wiped out. So during that time, my parents, who had already had a rocky marriage, sent me and my sister up to her. She was going to college in around Jackson, Mississippi, and they sent us up there. Get away from here. There was nothing there. There was no power. There was no food. And so at 17, I went with my sister and I experienced college alcoholism for the first time. And I had the ability to drink, and I didn't have boundaries. And I was like, this is it. This is the answer. This is what is going to dull all those sharp edges of the world, because the world to me was nothing but sharp edges. Everything felt like it was going to just pierce my skin and I was going to bleed out at any time. I didn't know how to verbalize it, but I just felt like I was always in pain. And then just that initial ease and comfort that first drink provided me. And it was off to the races. But I still had some responsibilities. So I still had soccer waiting for me, but I had this really long pause afforded by Hurricane Katrina that let me experience alcoholism. And when I got back to my parents' house, this was in December of 2005, and my parents' marriage had dissolved. They split up, and overnight. And look, when I'm telling y'all all of this, I'm not telling y'all what made me an alcoholic. I was born with alcoholism, and it just so happened that there were some factors in my life that weren't ideal. But I'm definitely not one of these people that are like, look at my life and how hard it was, and this is why I drink. I drink because I'm an alcoholic. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So my parents' marriage dissolved. Everything that I've known, my childhood house, everything is kind of flatlined overnight. So I start college in 2006, and my parents are going through a divorce. So they don't have the ability to like be parents anymore. And I'm 18. So I'm like, here we go. This is it. First of all, college drinking. If you're a college athlete, oh yeah, you can drink. You just got to be up at practice in the morning. So I could do that. So this is what taught me how to really hide from anybody and everybody that would be an authority figure in my drinking. So first it was my soccer coach. I could drink, show up at practice, and I could just learn how to hide. I could learn to put that skin on that we as alcoholics put on. I don't have a problem. I'm sober right now, which is hardly ever true, right? How can I make myself look sober? What do I have to do? Am I sober enough? Does the world think I'm sober? So that started super early. And I played out the amount of soccer that I could play. And then once that scholarship was up and I had nobody to answer to, it was like, here is it. This is the solution. And for the next 15 years of my life, I spent each and every day waking up and trying to figure out how I could pass out that night, not go to sleep. I wanted to find that sweet spot where I could stop being conscious to the world. And I live my life that way. And what that comes along with is a lot of pain and despair, like y'all know. And I'll just kind of hit some, I call them high points because I'm not going to call them low points, but just parts of my experience that convinced my disease that I deserve to continue drinking. Because, you know, there's self-pity that we're familiar with, and then there's the bitter morass of self-pity that just consumes us. And that needs fuel. And so what that meant was if I started doing anything other than feeding my alcoholism, I was going to run into a brick wall. I was going to run into a part of myself that was going to convince me that I needed to keep drinking. So let's see. Well, first, my mom got remarried to a wonderful guy that I'd kind of known a little bit of my whole life. I was really excited. His name was Mike, and he had a son named Che that I'd kind of grown up with. Yay, Che. We're stepbrother and sister now. And 6 months later, Che overdosed. And in 2007, when you said that you overdosed, you did not wake back up. You know, there wasn't Narcan then. So that was a really hard experience in my life. But also, I've been running away from my family for so long that this was the first time that my family saw what was really going on with me and saw me in person. And, you know, you can lie to a lot of people about your alcoholism, but your family, even the alcoholic ones, when they tell you you have a problem, you might need to start listening a little bit, you know, because then you've got even more of a reason to keep drinking. You're like, you don't get to tell me anything, right? You taught me how to do this. But when they're genuinely worried about you, you would think it would be a sign. But us alcoholics have a tendency to look at signs and see them how we want to see them, right? You know, I had a whole family of people that are standing around me at my stepbrother's funeral and telling me, Dana, you've got to get it together. And I'm like, oh, I'm just getting started. I didn't know how to be without alcohol. There was this feeling that would come over me when I would wake up, and I would wake up with a start. And y'all know that feeling. You wake up, you gasp, and then your heart starts pounding and you start going through, what did I do last night? And if you look around and you can't find your bottle and you realize you're out, you're like, oh my God, okay. It's 8 o'clock in Mississippi. The liquor store is open at 10. I've got 2 hours. And in those 2 hours, I've got to figure out how to not pull my skin off and how to not just catastrophize everything, but you do. And also I need $9.58 for my fifth of Canadian Hunter. That's what I need. And I've got to find that today. And I don't have it. And so how am I going to get that? And then what did I do last night? And okay, who did I talk to? But I didn't go anywhere. But did I? But did I go to the bar? And where is my car? And what did I, over and over and over. And then you get that initial ease and comfort and you're like, who cares? And it just repeated itself every single day. And you can't really maintain a lifestyle with that as a woman or even a man unless you have money. And so you have to have a way to get money. And it turns out I could have a lot of different server jobs. I could be a bartender every now and then, but even bartending, they don't like you to be drunk all the time, it turns out. So this path would lead me to do things that people have to do to get what they need. Incomprehensibly demoralizing things. And we don't really have to go in there. I don't have to say what it is, because whatever your mind is thinking right now, that's what it is. And then some, because I probably forgot a lot of it, right? And what I remembered of what I had to do left me with so much shame that I continued in this horrible cycle where I told myself that I wasn't worth anything. And then I acted that out in real time. And I would wake up and every day I would think, this is going to be different. And I would get into relationships with people who did what I wanted, which was let me drink the way that I wanted to, which was from the moment that I woke up until the moment that I passed out. And those people were not shining members of society. And I had to do things with those people and for those people that I did not want to do. But they were my boyfriend and I love them. But no, they were somebody who either drank like me or let me drink alcoholically. When I was thinking about this today, speaking tonight, I was really just praying a little bit about about things to talk about and parts of my experience. And one of them that I don't share a lot that I'm going to share tonight is I would have periods of sobriety. Okay, what does sobriety mean? I would go to treatment and get put on antabuse. And so I would be sober for just a little while. And in that moment, my body would kind of regenerate and kind of get healthy. And I would end up getting pregnant because I'm a woman and I don't know how to engage in sex responsibly, and I don't have boundaries, and I don't have a way to have a whole ideal about what life is supposed to look like. And I'm living with somebody that I barely know, but here now I'm pregnant with a child, and I would not stop drinking then. I didn't know how to, and I didn't care. I didn't I'm an alcoholic, so I would read like you can have a glass of wine when you're pregnant, but they did not mean a bottle. And I would drink like two. And I would sit there on my phone and I would Google what is it like to have a child with fetal alcohol syndrome, because I knew that I could not stop drinking, but that I had a child inside of me. So the first time that this happened, I ended up going into labor at 17 weeks with twins. I lost both children. I now know that this is a gift from a God that I did not believe in at the time. That God saved me from something that I could not understand. And I've done a lot of grief work since then about what that means, because I had such conflicting emotions. Like, why am I grateful that this happened, that these children are no longer living? Well, I know why. They would have had fetal alcohol syndrome and I would have not been able to parent them. But then why am I in such immense grief? Don't I deserve to feel bad for this happening because I caused it, but I'm also in pain? And the reality is, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both. And it is both. And that was my experience in 2013. And so then my alcoholism is like, wow, you really are horrible. And so here's how we're going to let that play out. And it was just years of drinking and years of treatment centers and years of hearing people come into those treatment centers, and they would have this book and they would talk about how their life had changed. And I just could not align myself with them. I couldn't believe that I could ever be like them. And I didn't understand how they could have such joy. The next thing will be the last thing that I cover in my drinking days, just because I think we're ready to move on to what it's like now. Is during this time, my older sister, who I loved and idolized more than anything, and she was one of us, and I loved drinking with her. That was like where my life felt complete. She was inebriated at a gas station, very obviously inebriated, and someone saw her and they called the police. And when the police tried to, I don't know if she was driving, but somehow a high-speed chase ensued, and she ran from the police and she got into a car accident, and the car got trapped in between a tree and a building and caught on fire, and she couldn't get out. So she burned to death. And my parents called me and said, we don't know if it's Kaylee yet, but we think that your sister has died. And what they said, when we don't know yet, meant that her body was so severely burned that she had to be identified through dental records. And that takes a little while. So in a week, when the crime lab in Jackson returned and said it was her, which I already knew it was her. She was one of us. You know, that's how we live. We live like that. That's an ending for us if we choose not to get sober. My disease went into full blown overtime. Not only did I deserve to drink now, I deserve to drink, and I hated you for telling me not to drink. If you have my life, you drink too. And I wrapped myself in this blanket of anger and pain, and I drank like there was no tomorrow. I drank until I threw up in a cup, and I drank that again. And my body was rebelling against everything that I had. And I was hospitalized for lack of potassium, because when you drink so much, your body rejects all the potassium that it has. And my muscles were twitching, and everything in my body was malfunctioning. And I was shaky even when I was drinking, and I couldn't write. And finally, something happened. And I called a friend of mine, and I explained to him, oh, in between this time too, I've gotten pregnant, and I used while I was pregnant with her, and I have a 1-year-old, and I'm living with her dad, and he and I are just like two alcoholics, and all of the things that go along with that, domestic violence, all of that. So there's this incident. He gets arrested one night, and I am in a t-shirt holding my little baby girl running down the road. And that night I called my dad, and I said, Dad, I am drinking uncontrollably. I'm ruining my life. Please come get me. My dad came and got me, and he's one of us too, but he hasn't made it into the room. So he was like drinking and driving me to treatment, whatever. We get where we need to be, how we need to get there. And my higher power knew what I needed at that moment. Because if somebody would have shown up sober and been like, hey, you need to get in here and I need to talk to you about Alcoholics Anonymous, probably wouldn't have gone. But my dad, I'm riding shotgun, we're drinking, and I go to treatment on May 20th of 2021, and I haven't had a drink since then. My sobriety date is May 25th of 2021, because for 5 days I had to be detoxed, and I do not know what was going on then, because I was in such severe DTs by the time I got to the hospital. I don't really remember a lot of detox. So I assume, anyway, May 25th, 2021. So we're at that day. I'm in treatment. I'm in my 7th treatment center. And it's one of those treatment centers that, like, it's kind of jail with a big book, and I'm an alcoholic. So I'm kind of like, the food here isn't good. And I need my parents to send me some cigarettes, and I need all this. And my parents were like, not only are we not going to send you any cigarettes, you can't come back here. Like, we don't ever want to see you again. And so now I'm in this treatment center, and I've got no cigarettes, no money. And the only thing that I own are a pair of Doc Martens and an Isaiah Thomas basketball jersey. Those are the two most expensive, precious things to me. And I'm in treatment, and my parents don't want to talk to me anymore. Nobody wants to talk to me. And I'm like, oh, I guess I better start listening. Okay, so in H&I, these people start to come in, and they start to talk about how they go without drinking. And y'all, I know the miracles of Alcoholics Anonymous, but then I could not fathom that. I couldn't fathom going a day without drinking. So when these people sat down and they told me that they can go a whole day without drinking, I was like, there is something miraculous here. I don't know what it is, but I knew that I had to listen. So I was at the front, sitting and absorbing everything that they had to say. And they gave me a big book, and I wrote my sobriety date in it. And at night, when everything would get really quiet, I would read. And I've been in treatment enough to know that you don't just get to read the stories, you read the first part of the book. So I would start reading the first part of the book. And after Bill's story, I would start over, and I would read it again and again. I was in there for 35 days. And I was like, this is me. These men all these years ago were me. And these men were ruining their lives, and they didn't care. And it's not that they didn't care. They didn't know how to care, because they were being driven by this disease that they have and that I have. And these people coming to do H&I, they have it too. And y'all, something happened. And I know now it was my mom telling me, that was the first part, is like, you can't come back here. Because when an alcoholic has to face being homeless, I mean, we'll do it sometimes, but also we're a little bit grandiose. We want to get off the streets as quick as possible. So I was like, okay, now I've got to figure out what I'm going to do to not be homeless. So I've heard about this thing called sober living. So I guess I'll try that. So on my 35th day of treatment, a place in Tupelo called the Talbot House came and picked me up in their van. I had my basketball jersey and my Doc Martens, and I was just looking out of the doors of the van, and the girl that picked me up, she said, "Are you ready to do it?" And I just remember saying, I said, "I really can't say. I've told everybody that I was going to do it so many times that, now I've just got to actually do it." And I didn't really know how true that was going to be. So I had to learn how to pay rent. It was $500 a month to live there. To pay rent, I have to get a job. I didn't have a bank account. I didn't have a driver's license. My teeth were rotting out of my head. I had hepatitis C and B. I hadn't been to a doctor in so long because I didn't have health insurance. And so first they took me to the doctor. They took me to the dentist, and then I got a job. I didn't have a car. A girl named Layla worked at this cardboard factory where they put together these boxes. And she said, "I'll get you a job there." And she drove me to and from work every morning. And once she didn't live, Jay, I love you. Once she didn't live there anymore, she drove from Pontotoc, Mississippi, which is 30 minutes from where I live. And she took me to work every morning. And I made $7.25 an hour. And so at the end of every week, when I would get paid, I would pay my rent, and I would have about $150 left. And I had to spend $50 on cigarettes. I was still smoking then. And I would put 100 in this bank account that I had just started. So I'd been sober about 6 months, and I did the dreaded thing, which was walk into the DMV. I had not had a driver's license since I was 19. I got my first DUI at 19. And after that, if you get a DUI and you don't have a driver's license, after that, every time you get pulled over and you get a no driver's license ticket, it's over $1,000 in Mississippi. And if it's that much in Mississippi, it's a lot where you live. So I had thousands of dollars stacked up of no driver's license tickets. And you have to go into the DMV and get a thing called a My Clear form. And I steeled myself. I walked into there and I was like, "Hey, my name is Dana, and I haven't had a driver's license in 15 years. And I'm trying to get my life back on track, and I need to know what it's going to take to get my driver's license." And they looked at me and basically told me that every ticket that I'd ever had except 2 had just disappeared on my license. And they said that was because sometimes they change over computer systems, or sometimes because it was in 2008, they probably just didn't update the system then. And it cost about $700 to get my license back. I had to take the driver's license test over again, the full thing. And my driver's license picture, which I got after 15 years, is me barely able to smile like this because my whole face was numb because I had dental surgery, because I was getting cavities filled and teeth pulled and bridges. I paid for dental work. Like, I have full teeth now, and they're white and they don't have any cavities in them. So at 7 months sober, I was asked, because I was doing it. I was doing it. Let me tell you something. In Tupelo, I'm like Mrs. AA, because everybody knows that I look like this when I talk about AA, because this program saved my life. So I was doing it. My sponsor at the time asked me to come and be her house mom at her new sober living house that she was starting. And so with 8 months of sobriety, I moved into this sober living house. I got a car. Still working this job, because let me tell you something AA taught me is when people give you chances, you honor them. And Mr. Joey at the cardboard place, Nightwind, where I work, shout out Mr. Joey. He knew my history and he knew my story, and he gave me keys to an industrial sized building with a bunch of stuff in it, including scrap metal. And he just did not even know. They used to call me Scrap Metal Sally during my darkest days because I loved some scrap metal. And what a world we live in where that would be flipped on its head. And he gave me the keys. He supported me during all of my endeavors. And to this day, if I called Mr. Joey and just to check in, I still stop by there. He helped save my life. He really helped save my life. So I've still got that job there. I'm folding up cardboard, doing some industrial things. I'm the house mom of a sober living. I get elected to be the GSR of a group with 1 year. You're supposed to have 2 years to be GSR, but they didn't have another GSR. And so here I am, and I'm going to district, and then I'm going to the state. And then I'm like, what is all this? And I'm learning. And people in AA are teaching me things. And shout out Between Sisters group. I love them. That's who I represented at the state level with a year of sobriety. And I've still got this voice in my head that's like, me, do you know what I've done? Do you know where I've been? Do you know the lengths that I've taken myself? And Alcoholics Anonymous is like, we don't care. We don't care. But how are you going to use that, what you've been through, to help others? That's all we care about. You know, we don't care about what your disease is telling you right now. We care about how you're going to answer that disease, right? So what are your actions going to be? And so I just continued to do it. And when it got hard, I just didn't drink no matter what. I fully believe that we get sober by moments. So each of those things I told myself I could never do. Oh, I can never walk into a bar again. Do you know what I would do if I saw alcohol? It's not even a problem to me anymore. Oh, I can never be around my family again. My dad and everybody that drinks. Me and my husband spent Easter with my alcoholic Cajun family, boiling crabs and eating gumbo, and they were all drinking. And I felt contentment in my heart, and the obsession of the mind had been removed from me for that day, because I was spiritually fit that day, because I woke up and went to a meeting in Arkansas. And then I went and I did it because I have a playbook for life now. I never thought that I would be somebody that would be able to follow directions, because I was grandiose and I was very sure of myself. Because I was so unsure of myself, I needed you to think that I had control. But when I surrendered in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and when people picked me up for meetings, and then when they ran into the gas station to get cigarettes, they left their purse in the car with me. What? And they let me, did they not know what I've done? Of course they know what I've done, because they've done it too. And they told me as much when I told them my fourth step. And my sponsor at the time is smoking a giant. She smoked the longest cigarettes I've ever. I think she ordered them special. This long giant cigarette. And she's like, all right, is that all? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, okay, let's go get some food. I'm like, what? And in that folding chair in her garage on Ham Street in Tupelo, Mississippi, a miracle happened. And all of that shame and all of those things that I had told myself, you will never rise above. I rose above them in those moments. And then I continued, work through the 12 steps. And she's like, all right, next time they ask in a meeting, if you're willing to sponsor, you've got to raise your hand. Okay. So then in a year sober, I got my first sponsee. And then a week later, my first sponsee went back out. And then I kept working the steps. Then I got a few more sponsees went out. Then I got a sponsee that I got to give her 1 year coin to. And then I got to watch her take her 2 year coin. And now I watch her give her coins to women in the program. Please excuse my barking dog if y'all can hear. And that was at 1 year sober. And I just kept sticking with it. There came a time where I needed to get a new sponsor. Y'all know how it is. There's some things you can navigate in AA, but sometimes it was just like a conflict of interest. Like I was working for my sponsor at the time. And, so we both made a decision that we would part ways. I still love her. Shout out, Kim. You got me sober. Love you. And I was in the parking lot of the 7 a.m. meeting in Tupelo, and this guy walks up and he's got this AA chain with the triangle in it. And he's like, hey, honey. And that was Jay Westbrook. And he's my sponsor today. And the rest is ancient history. And I love you, Jay, with all of my heart. So I got this new sponsor. I'm still doing it. And I'm like, what if I don't want to just work in a factory forever? What if I can do something else? So I sign up for school. And I go to school, and the school says, well, you have a semester that does not look good. So if we admitted you, you would be on academic probation. Because, I had a semester where I went to school, and instead of before I would go to class, because before I could interact with anyone, I had to have alcohol in my system. So I would have my little pint of vodka and I would chug it in the bathroom. And then I'd go in class and be like, oh, yes. And I did that for a week and I never came back. Well, apparently you can't do that. They frown upon it. And so I had all these academic failures on my record. And Jay helped me write an appeal letter and explain what my life was like now. And Itawamba Community College admitted me and forgave my academic probation. And I completed my associate's degree. I'm going to cry. And today, I'm a senior at the University of Mississippi. I have a 3.8 GPA. I found out on Wednesday that I am the Tupelo student ambassador for the University of Mississippi campus here in Tupelo. I am an intern at Grief Recovery of Tupelo. I do grief work with Jay. Oh, this is my little coffee cup. This is what I wanted to show you. This is can you see it? Collegiate. Oh, it's blurring it out. Collegiate Recovery Community at the University of Mississippi, which I'm a member of. And it's for people like us who are trying to figure out how to be, thank you, Jay, successful in life without those things that our disease tells us we need to be successful. When I had a year sober, I met this guy at the gym. He was like this big, beautiful guy. And I have a disease that tells me I'm not worthy. So the minute he talked to me, I was like, not him, God. He's too good looking and I'll mess that up. And today I'm married to him. His name is Steven. Hang on, I'm going to give y'all a little preview. Let me show y'all my little picture. That big guy is Steven. That's me. And those 3 little children are mine, 2 bonus kids, and that little one there that's holding my hand. I drank and used while she was in the womb. I'm not going to do any ifs, ands, or buts about that. I did not know how to control myself, but God, my higher power, saved me and her from the life that we deserve. And we have a life today of substance. And I'm able to look other women in the eye who are going through the same thing and be like, girl, your story is not over yet. Alcoholics Anonymous repairs lives. Alcoholics Anonymous changes lives. Alcoholics Anonymous does things that you could never, ever dream. And I can tell you this because I never dreamed of them. So there's not a lot of things. I don't deal in absolute truths in my life, but when it comes to Alcoholics Anonymous, there is one thing that I know that I would bet on. And that is, if I come into AA and I work the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I call my sponsor and I go to meetings, that I'll stay sober. And the rest of it is going to work itself out. And it always has. That failed semester that I have in college is of no substance to me anymore. It's a reminder of where I can go if I don't do what I need to do. But I am a successful college student who's about to start putting in graduate school applications. I'll be the first person in my family to ever graduate with a higher education degree. And I come from a family of alcoholics. And those alcoholics will cheers me with their beer in their hand. And listen, that's okay. That's okay that they're not in the rooms with me, because they show me about life. They show me where I can be. And I don't judge them either. I didn't get sober just to judge people. My life is my life and my sobriety is mine. But I can tell y'all that I'm so grateful for each and every one of you, because each and every one of you are the reason that I stay sober. And we do this together. Y'all are a part of my heart and my life. I am so glad that y'all were here tonight. Thank you for listening to me. I love all of y'all, and that's all I've got.